Shalom Aleichem. Today is Monday, and it's Tes. Oy Lasar B'Tevis. Tonight is the eve of the 10th of Tevis, which is the first of the 4 fasts associated with the Churban. But it's a fast that we only fast by day. We don't fast by night, even though in some aspects it's mashma from Chazal that Asar B'Tevis may even be more serious than Tisha B'Av itself, like the Rebbe brings Nesichis from the Abudraham, that when Tisha B'Av is Shabbos, we push it to Sunday. Asar B'Tevis falls on Friday, we fast, and the Abudraham says if Asar B'Tevis would fall on Shabbos, we would also fast. So it's on the one hand only a day, it's not a day and a night. On the other hand, it's compared to Yom Kippurim, like it says Be'etzam HaYom Hazeh. The Abudraham makes a comparison Be'etzam HaYom Hazeh by Asar B'Tevis and Be'etzam HaYom Hazeh by Yom Kippurim. So this makes this the first of the 4 fasts, in certain ways the most serious of the 4 fasts. And therefore, because the Rebbe Kedarkei B'Kodesh, when he talks about the fast, immediately jumps to the Yehavchu Yomim Elu Sosnu L'Simcha V'Emes V'Shalom Hahevu, that the fast become Yom Tov when Mashiach comes, and they become the biggest Yom Tov when Mashiach comes. And of the Yomim Tevim that come from the fasts, after Mashiach comes, no Yom Tov is greater than the Yom Tov of Asar B'Tevis, because it's Tchil the Puranutz, it's the beginning of the Puranias, so it's the beginning of the Gula, Hamitis, Vashleima, take off from a Yad Mamish, Ve'ed V'ho Iker Mamish Mamish Mamish. So, as the Rebbe said more than 30 years ago, as it's Hechstetzeit, it's the highest time for the Gula, Hamitis, Vashleima, Adem Mashiach, Tzedkeinu, take off from a Yad Mamish. Now, Rabbi said this Shir is the 5th on the Mamer Basi Ligani. I was planning to give only 4, but I ran out of time before I ran out of Mamer. The Shir last night was almost 2 hours, and it was way past midnight when we finished. And I had to interrupt, so we're going to do a 5th Shir and finish. The Shir is a schos Nishmas, Yenusim ben Tzipere, Yankov Dave ben Pnino, Chayamushka Bashtein Asara, Yankov ben Etel, Arsen bat Zoya, Doiv ber ben Talia, Mesha ben Binyamin, Mesha Yenusim ben Tzipere, Teva bas Fege, Ilan ben Ira, Ilan ben Shimshon, Yehuda Leib ben Manya, Shoshana bas Minet, Levi Zev ben Elisha Verachel, Yankiv Yisrael ben Sora, Chayamalka bas Shtenesara, Scott ben Adam, Ora bat Golda, Geffen ben Esther, Yosef ben Shtenesara. It's also schus for the 4 Shleima, for Liba Breine bas Artemilium, Yosef Shleima ben Risha, Yehuda Leib ben Chana Heschel, Avigal bas Bela, Reitza be'ilum Shmoz, Harali bas Maltov, Shana Teo bas Leah, and Esther Malka bas Ahava. And now is Lilu Nishmas Hakdoishim, Harav Faivel Eliezer ben Deber Bela Halevi, HaKodeš, Hashem Yimkem Dami, Mesha Ana ben Yosef, Hashem Yimkem Dami, Reuven ben Emmanuel, Hashem Yimkem Dami, Yankiv ben Tzvi Halevi, Hashem Yimkem Dami, Marike Basara, Hashem Yimkem Damo, Matilda Britvan, Hashem Yimkem Damo, Dan El-Chayam, Hashem Yimkem Dami, Alex Kleitman, Hashem Yimkem Dami, Peter Mager, Hashem Yimkem Dami. I don't know if you saw this, I saw in the COL, that this Peter Mager found out that he was Jewish a few minutes before they killed him. He didn't know he was a Yid. And he found out that he's a Yid, and then he was Mekadesh Shem Shemayim Barabim. Boris Tettelroyd, Hashem Yimkem Dami. Tibor Weitzen, Hashem Yimkem Dami. HaKodesh Tzvi, Hashem Yimkem Dami ben Alexander HaKayin Shlita. And Lila Nishmas, my friend Meir Chaim, Olav Shalom, Ben Baruch, Ben Tzion, Sheyichya. Lila Nishmas, Meishuda ben Tzvi Yosef, and the Schus Zarachai V'Kayoma, for Chaya bas Rezel and Yisrael Shema ben Edna Zarachai V'Kayoma. Now Rabbi said we're learning Basi Ligani. And this year's Basi Ligani, Tafshin Chavav, 1966, is based on chapter 16, Perek Tes Zayin, of the previous Rebbe's Mamer Basi Ligani. And the topic is Erein Seif L'mayla Den Kates, that there's a level of godliness, which is called the higher aspect. And the Rebbe in this Mamer insists that it's 2 different levels of Erein Seif, not just 2 ideas about one Erein Seif, as we understood in the 4 prakim before this one, chapters 12, 13, 14, and 15, understood the statement of the Tikkun Ezeir, Erein Seif L'mayla Den Kates, L'mata Den Tachas, as 2 characteristics of the same Oyer. And in this Pedic, it's two Eidos. The Eid which is revealed and is revealable is Lamata Adein Tachlis. And the Eid which is Eine Begeder Gili, which can never be revealed, is Lamaila Adein Kates. So what value is there to an Eid that's impossible for us to have? So the Rebbe says we have it. Because if we didn't have it, it would not be called Makif. But we have it in a way of Eir Chezer. And the Rebbe gave us a bunch of Mishalim, including the Mashal of a Chida, of a riddle, and the Mashal of Sipurei Teira, that the deepest secrets of the Teira are hidden in the stories. The secrets within these stories are so deep that if we were to go to the depth of these stories, we would find a light which is not even revealed. It would bring us to a light that would draw us away from Gila, away from the world, as we discussed at the end of last night's class. So then you ask a question, how does that help us? And the answer is that through the riddle, through the darkness, we find that treasure in a quantum separated way. It comes to us through the garments of a story, but hidden behind the garments of the story is the deepest secrets of the Torah. And we figure out how to hear into the story some of the depth that is hidden behind it, that is the treasure. When I gave you yesterday's class, which as we just mentioned took almost 2 hours, I explained it to you by the study of Torah She'Ba'al Peh to extract halacha. That when in darkness you ask questions and you struggle in that darkness to look for a little bit of light. If you have enough integrity and enough Mesiras Nefesh, the halacha that you extract, which is so far away from the chokhmah of the Torah, from the illuminated Torah, which they had in Bayis Rishon, but you're zeichet to be mechavan lamitas l'shotayra, you find the truth of the Torah, like it says in the Samach Vav, that the halachas of Torah She'Ba'al Peh, which were revealed in time of the second Beis HaMikdash, when, so to speak, the lights went out, reveal more of the emes of the Torah than was revealed in the times of the first Beis HaMikdash, when there was Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh. Because the darkness and the dedication that it extracted from the Tanoim, and their loyalty to Eisias HaTeira and Milei HaTeira, Teves HaTeira, and Eisias HaTeira, and Tagei HaTeira, brought them to the truth of the halacha, even though the halacha is so far away from the so-called light of that halacha itself. Similarly, the Rebbe is arguing that when we have difficulty and we dig deep enough, we will get from the treasure, even though we're getting from the treasure in the kind of way that it's extremely far removed from the treasure as the treasure is by itself, because if the treasure is by itself, it's not revealed and not revealable. But through the secondary form, which does this great act of hiding and at the same time somehow delivering it to us, we get that power through the haze, through the darkness. Whereas the Rebbe said in the Mamer, the Eibishter wants to have more tainuk. And if Hashem wants more tainuk, He hides Himself from us, He distances us from Him. And what is the extra tainuk that the Eibishter gets when we find the treasure in spite of all of the odds? And that's what this Pedic is about. This Pedic is describing Eitzer HaElyon, the supernal treasure, and it's identifying it as Ein Seif L'Maila, in case godliness which is beyond, it's above, beyond any purpose. And it's qualifying that by saying that this Ein Seif which is L'Maila in Ketz is completely hidden and it's not revealed and never will be revealed. And then says we get it. We get it through very, very indirect means, but we get the treasure. We get the power that comes from that treasure. So the Rebbe now finishes the Mamer in Pedic Yud. The next prakim, after 16, there's going to be a 17 and an 18 and a 19 and a 20. The Rebbe Rayatz is going to continue his discussion of explaining Ein Seif and continue the discussion of the example that Ein Seif provides in explaining Eitzer HaElyon. Sheyesh Hamshach has made Ein Seif based on godliness which emerges from Ein Seif, but in a real way means it reaches us, which is the Lamata Dein Tachlis. V'yesh Hamshachas Mil Mailo. There are what comes to us from heaven, which is Shalom Mailo Maila Dein Kate. It's higher and higher beyond an end. In other words, this godliness which has been given to us in the kind of way that is completely sealed away from us. In the wording of the Rebbe on page Kuf Tzadek Hey, it's given to us, but it's given to us in a completely sealed way. V'zehu amites inyan ha'oitzer. And that's what a treasure means. A treasure means something which you hide. A treasure means something which is concealed. Not and concealed that the recipient shouldn't receive it. Esteem with the whole steam and it's even hidden by itself, meaning it's not only hidden from someone else. The nature of the treasure is hidden in relationship with self. And I guess in the mashal of a melech it means even the king doesn't look at the treasure. Says the Rabbi Omlam, however, hastimasu, this notion that there is a treasure, and as is the nature of treasure, this treasure is hidden away, not available to anybody, it's hidden by itself. Still, that's only true when we haven't been put in a position where we're fighting a war where survival is at stake and we have to win at all costs. When we find ourselves in a situation we're fighting a war, and the war we're fighting is not lishlol shalav vaz to acquire more wealth, but the war we're fighting is for our own survival, which is called malchemes nitachin, a war that we must win. Says the Rebbe, the treasure is given, and it's given to us, and we get it. The commission is given to us in the form that's equivalent to stories. Alternatively, the example of a riddle. Through the stories and through the riddles, we get the deepest depth of the seichel, which is even by the Rav hidden away. That although it's reaching us in such a remotely distant form from the way it is in the original, because it's coming to us through stories, it's coming to us through a riddle. But we decipher the story and we decipher the riddle and we find the power which is behind it. And if I may say parenthetically, it is a sikha from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe talked about the previous Rebbe. And he said the previous Rebbe's life is the ultimate bizbuz ha'etzes. His life is the displurging of treasure. And he gave the example from the fact that the previous Rebbe tells so many stories. Stories about the Rabbeim, stories about Chassidim, stories about Chassidus. And the Rebbe says, people look at the stories that the Frierdiker Rebbe tells and say, this is Baisis. Stories. And the Rebbe says, those stories are the stories of the Basi Ligani. These stories that the Frierdiker Rebbe revealed about the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim, and the Mizitcher Maggid and his Talmidim, and the Alter Rebbe and his Chassidim, and so on, carry within themselves the Oitzer, the deepest godliness, and is delivered as a story. And because it's delivered as a story, you think it's no big deal, but hidden in these stories is the deepest secrets of the Torah. And when you have a difficult situation, that story becomes the fortification. That story becomes the midas hanetzach you need to win the day, to fight and win the battle. Through these examples and these riddles, it becomes the property of the recipient. And to the extent they can actually use it in battle, and win the battle. The common soldier has been given the deepest secrets through the stories and through the riddles. And when he's under pressure, when his life is in danger, when he's spiritually at a deeply complicated circumstance, and so forth and so on, he draws through these stories from that power to win, fight and win the war. And that's the pshat, bizbuz ha'etzres. The treasure is given to the anshe chayil. It's given to the generals, which is the rabbeim. But it's given to the generals on behalf of the anshe chayil for the common foot soldier. And the common foot soldier fights and wins and reveals it. Fights and accesses this power, reveals this power and uses it to defeat his enemy and win the war. But then the Rebbe adds a chap. In the treasure itself, there's two madregas. Number one, the treasure of this particular king that he hides and reveals. And number two, the treasure which is accrued from earlier generations. When it comes to treasure itself, we have two ideas. There's the treasure which he inherits from his earlier generations. And then there's the treasure which he personally accrued. As well as the treasure which he's accrued from his parents. And of course the treasure which is his own is on a lower level of and the treasure which is his parents is on a deeper level of and both of these treasures are distributed to the Anshe Chayil Pashat to win the war. To explain these two aspects of the treasure, the treasure which has been collected by this king himself, and the treasure which he's collected from earlier kings. So the Rebbe brings another time, this year, Tafshir Chavav, 1966, 100 years into the Stalkus in the year 1866, and he brings the pasuk, Tishma. If you will listen. And of course the word Akif means if, it means when, and it also means the heel, the end of listening. Akif Tishma means Ikvas in the Mashiach. That it says in the pasuk Akif Tishma that there's a reward for mitzvahs. Akif means a schar for mitzvahs, like the Ramban brings this. That Akif means the end of time, the heel of time, the end of time. And Akif Tishma, when you listen to the mitzvahs at the end of time, there is schar. And the Razal said the Inyan schar yibazman the Akif, the reward reaches us at a time which is called the heel, the end of time. B'seif hayom, the end of time. However, Mazvasham, the Tzemach Tzedek continues and he says, when Mashiach comes, we're rewarded. But the reward has two dimensions, the basic reward and then how that reward is compounded. It's not only true Haschar, it's now until Mashiach comes. We're going to get the reward, which we're entitled to now, and then we're going to receive it. But there's going to be an element of it being compounded. There's a story in the Medrash about Pinchas ben Yair, who was a Tanim. That if Kidu Etzlei Se'edim, they gave him barley, and he didn't know what to do with it, so he planted it, and it grew. And more barley grew. Then he planted others. He sold it and bought more expensive crops. And when the person came back to claim it, he had for him a wealth. He planted them every year. He made out of them a collection of grain. So then he planted the wheat and so on. Because when it came to collect the treasure of a little pile of barley, he told them, I'm coming to take your treasure, which included all kinds of wealth. So there's this schar for the mitzvah we do, and then there's the interest. And that's the difference between the treasure that's your own and the treasure which you have from your ancestors. Same is true when it comes to the word for the mitzvah. As the pasuk says, the Eibusha does it for those who wait, that he delays the reward. One generation after another, many years at the end of time. And because of this delay, it's not only they be given the reward which we were entitled to when we did the mitzvah, which is comparable to the treasure that belongs to this king. And the reward is halach v'gad, it continues to grow, growth after growth. Actually, becomes the treasure, which is in the mashal, the treasure which you have from your ancestors. So there's two madreges of vakeach atzmi, vakeach nalam, which reaches the soldier through indirect mechanisms to win the war. And in this Mamer, that oitzer is a madreg of atzmos avein safe, which is so hidden away that it's never revealed. It's only available under difficult conditions in most indirect way. And he concludes, this treasure is given to every Jew. Is given to the general, which means that Rabbeim Dinesim. But the intent is to read the common soldier. That they carry through, feed and durch, the victory in the war. And only them affect, they fulfill the will of the king. The king of the universe, the war should be won until you have a nigel kveda. So the war is won by the common soldier using these techniques. Now, before we finish this class, I just want to state the obvious. And that is that this may be a short class. And this last Pedic may be, so to speak, the afterthought of this Pedic, which is extremely edel and scholarly. But it is the point. The point is that there is Milchemes Beis David, there is Milchemes Nitzachon, and there's Pkidei Achayil, which is the Rebbe, and there's the Anshe Chayil, which is us, and the Eibush Takvayochel Mevazbeis de Oitzris Al Yedei Pkidei Achayil Bishvil Anshe Achayil to be Matzliach in the Milchama. So this short little class at the end, which became a class because I just couldn't talk anymore after talking for an hour and 50 minutes in what was the fourth class of this Mamer, is small. It's ma'ata kamus, but in terms of the kavanah, the Basi Ligani, it's Rav Ha'echos. The whole point of Basi Ligani is Nesava Kodesh Baruch Elias Leis Baruch Dire Betachteinem, also Limitish Shachanti Besecham, Tzadikim Yishkinu Oretz, V'Yishkinu Ad Aleha, through the avodah of Eskafi V'Shapche and Karbones and the Bimahapech Shtuz de Liyumaz to make it into Shtuz de Kedusha, and the Sheket of Eila make it into a Keshet, into a Kedesh in the Beis HaMikdash, through the Tzivis Hashem, who are Leichem Al-Chemet Hashem V'Yinatzchu, V'Yinatzeach, in an Oifen, that Tzivis will have three translations, that in Tizman, they're going to bring the Mesiras Nefesh to the extent that there's going to be a Yoifi in the world with the koyach of this Oitzer that this Pedic is about, that there's godliness which is so hidden that it can never come out directly, and yet we have the power that this Eid Eliki Atzmi, Stim B'Dechol Stimin gives, to be able to be Marseich in the Melchama. We mustn't forget that the Mamer Basi Ligani is a Teire, which is connected to a Rebbe, and is therefore connected to an Avodah. That's as the Piskam is, Maila Adein Case until Mata Adein Tachlis. The ideas start very high, but they're meant to come down into Eil Mazeh HaMaisa, and that's the Kavona, and that's the Ikir, and that's the Tachlis, and that's the Matorah. The Matorah is not to learn the Maimon and understand the Maimon, but the Maimon has to translate into our Avodah B'chol Yom, which is what we do. Using the Oitzis that the Eibishter gave us, Al Yedei Pekidei HaChayil, to make a Dira Le'Yisbarach B'Tachteinim. Now, Rabbi said this sheet is less than 20 minutes long, which is kind of odd because the average sheet in this Maimon is about an hour and 15 minutes. So I want to use the fact there's such a short sheet to share something with you. The Rebbe pointed out at the very beginning of this Pedic, and the previous Rebbe does that as well, that in the last few Prakim, when we talked about Ein Seif L'Mayla Den Ketz L'Mata Den Tachlis, we said it's one concept, godliness, with two character traits, a character trait of being revealed everywhere, L'Mata Adein Tachlis, and a deeper character trait, which is that it's not known by anybody anywhere, which is L'Mayla Adein Ketz. But in this Pedic, we insisted that it's two levels of Ein Seif, a level of Ein Seif which is revealed or could be revealed, Gili and Geder Gili, and a level of Ein Seif which is Leiber Geder Gili, which is Soso Mitzad Atzmei Stima Dechol Stima. But our Pedic and our Maimon insists that somehow we have it as well. But there seems to be a preoccupation with the idea that it's two madregas. So first of all, Friday we're going to be learning the Hemshech to this Maimon, which is Maimon Yelech Havayis Ephem Tafresh Samach Vov. And it's very interesting because it's 60 years exactly since the Rebbe Rashab said the Samach Vov in the year of Vayelech. And this year, it's 120 years since the Rebbe Rashab said the Samach Vov. It's twice that many years. And the Mamer Vayelech Havayis Hayom talks about this issue of Ein Seif L'Mayla Adein Ketz L'Mata Adein Tachlis. So in the Mamer we're going to be learning Friday, the Rebbe is going to bring the Samach Vov, and he's going to even do more to reinforce the idea that the two levels of Ein Seif L'Mayla Adein Ketz L'Mata Adein Tachlis is not two characteristics of one oil, but it's two madregas made altogether. He's going to bring you moedendik rayas, including rayas that are so controversial, it's going to make your hair that's standing on its head stand on its head. The Rebbe is going to say that your chelis is one nekuda, and because it's one nekuda, it includes opposites, and because it includes opposites, it's quote unquote indecisive. And to win a war, you need clarity and decision, and therefore the Ein Seif L'Mayla Adein Ketz cannot be a chelis; it has to be. It's going to be very powerful. But the conclusion of the Maimon we're going to learn this Friday, Bli Neder, is going to be that there's two madregas of Ein Seif, as it says in this Maimon, which is going to be even further driven home in that Maimon of Vayelech, Maimon of Beshalach. But 20 years later, in 1988, which is now 40 years ago, 1986, 40 years ago, Tafshim Memvav, the Rebbe again said Bas Ligani in Perek Tezayin, and a few interesting things happened. First of all, that Maimon is actually quite short, one of the shortest. Second of all, quote unquote, he failed to mention the Baal Shem Tov and the Mezritcher Maggid. And the Shabbos after Yud Shevat, Basi Ligani, the Rebbe said a Maimon V'yelech Havayis Hayom, I think. And then he added the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. In other words, the Maimon after Basi Ligani that year is really a part of the Basi Ligani itself, because he included in the second Maimon the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. And in that Maimon, which I have not yet decided if I'm going to reteach, because it's available online, I have it on my website, the Rebbe is going to say exactly the opposite, or b'mamish exactly the opposite. In this Maimon of Tashan Chavov, the Rebbe goes out of his way to drive home the point that there's two madregas of Ein Seif, And in the Mamer, 20 years later, he's going to go out of the way to drive home the point that there's one Madrega Ve'ein Seif. Or as he says it, in each of the two Madregas, you have both in Yonim. But B'meila, it's one thing. And it's ironic and enlightening and compelling and challenging that the Rebbe says in Mamer Basi Ligani and interprets the previous Rebbe's Mamer in Shuv Shemikra. The previous Rebbe says it, that in Seif L'mayla in case L'mata in Tachas, two Madregas Ve'ein Seif. And the Rebbe goes into this and he argues this and he proves this and he establishes this and he insists on it and so on. And 20 years later he says, nah, it's two in Yonim and one Ir. The L'mayla in case L'mata and Tachas are connected. And to me, the two Maimarim are not contradictory. They're a hand and a glove. They're a lower level and a higher level. First, you have to understand how they're separate. And then you have to go deeper to realize how each one has the other one within itself. And as a result, they're becoming one on a very lofty, edel, mystical level. But this is what's going to happen in the next Basi Ligani, Tov Shin Mem Vav 1986, where the Rebbe is going to give us the opposite perspective. Now, I'm not promising to teach it just yet, but I am promising to end this class right now. So, I don't know if you're still able to eat before the fast, but we can certainly eat before the fast. And B'Shmuel, you're not holding oaths to the end of the Tanas, although by you in the summer, the fast goes out quite late. Huh?
We're halfway through.
What time is it?
2:43.
And you have to fast till 9, till 9:30. What time do you have to fast till?
8:30.
Okay. Then agringen Tanis and the Ikes Yahafchu Yamim Edle Sasnul Simcha ve'emes v'Shalom Ahevu. I thank you all for listening to me.
Question: Didn't you do the Mamer in your series of in the Top Shin Member?
Yeah, it's there.
You would have done Basi Ligani already.
I did. It's up.
Yeah.
But there's a part of me that wants to reteach it. I taught it so many years ago, I have no idea what I said. I know one thing for sure.
Okay.
I know less, my brain is slower, but I'm a lot wiser than I was when I taught it.
Good. I understand the comment.
Okay, a gute Nacht, a guten Morgen, a guten Nachmittag.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining.